Congressman Perriello, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Coy, for that introduction and for being here to moderate with us today. You're certainly a mandate for radio, but we're happy to see you in person today. In all seriousness, I just want to thank the Senior Statesman of Virginia for being a great organization that is trying to elevate the level of public debate. I've enjoyed my interactions with the forum. They've been substantive, and particularly the hosting of this forum, which 2 years ago was the first debate I ever participated in as I got into politics. And it was something where I was particularly pleased to be doing it here because my grandparents had been such an active part of the Senior Center. And I certainly want to thank the Senior Center for hosting, but also for all the great things they do for seniors in our community and for everyone else in addition to that. The grandparents that I mentioned ended up spending their last couple years down in Gazebo Court, just a couple blocks away. And their daughter is here tonight, which is my mother, Linda Perriello, if you could give her a hand. Not only because at the first debate she stood in the back and spent the vast majority of the forum actually in the hallway, too nervous to listen, and has suggested that this time she thinks she'll be able to actually be here and stand through it, but she is sitting right on the cusp, you'll notice. So we'll see how that goes today. Just to address the issue of Senator Hurt's absence, I can just say, given how important this forum has been in the past, it was an honor to sit up here with Congressman Good last time and exchange ideas. We had a spirited debate, and one thing that was great about a campaign with Mr. Good was there was never any question where he stood. We disagreed a lot of the time, but he was more than happy to stand up and say what his values were and his positions were. It was a valuable forum. And no one's entitled to this seat. No one gets it for free. You've got to fight for it. You've got to make the case to the voters. There's been a lot of talk about discussion of televised debates and this, that, the other thing. It has been my strong position that Mr. Clark, as a credible candidate, as a candidate on the ballot, as a veteran and a business owner, and as a man who really, frankly, represents a lot of the views I hear from constituents a lot of the time, belongs in those debates. Senator Hurt's made it very clear that he will not allow Mr. Clark in the debates, and I think that that is a shame in terms of our democratic process, particularly a year when the economic stakes are so high. But given that he repeatedly refuses to do that, even after having pledged to the contrary, let me be very clear. I challenge Senator Hurt to 4 one-on-one televised debates so that voters get more than 30-second TV spots. 4 televised debates. The voters deserve that. The stakes are incredibly high this year in terms of the jobs, in terms of the deficit, in terms of wars we're fighting, and voters deserve more than hiding behind negative TV spots from your allies in the insurance industry and the oil industry. Voters deserve that in this economy. Again, I think it would be better if all candidates were allowed, but if that's not plausible, I think we need an opportunity on television for voters around the district to hear from that, and I hope Senator Hurt will not back out of that challenge. In addition, in any other forums, I am more than happy to continue forums with Mr. Clark, who has been, again, presenting a set of viewpoints, and we'll see that he and I disagree strongly on many issues, but we've also tried to do so respectfully and substantively, and hopefully that will continue, because again, I think that's the kind of debate that we need. Let me just say a couple of things here in the opening remarks on substance. I think that there has been a tendency, and it's growing right now, to have a very short-sighted blame game about the economy. One side increasingly blaming President Obama, the other side pointing back to President Bush. My personal view is that our economic problems go deeper than any one president or any one party. We have had a 25-year decline of the middle class and working class in this country. We have seen jobs disappear under Republican presidents and Democratic presidents. We have seen, in my mind, elites in both parties believe that we can somehow get by without making anything, building anything, or growing things in America anymore. And it's simply not sustainable. We have in the past, and we can in the future, build things, make things, and grow things better than anyone else in the world. And this idea that if we just shore up the banks enough, if they just bail out the banks enough, that somehow that's going to trickle down to everyone else, I think was a misguided strategy on many levels. One of the reasons I got into this a couple years ago was that it seemed that that was the consensus in Washington. while I've been proud to stand with the President on issues where I agree with him, I have also been very critical of the economic team that I think misses this opportunity to see this as a moment where we have to rebuild manufacturing, construction, ag, and forestry in this country. The stakes are incredibly high, as I mentioned, because it's not just that we've seen an enormous number of jobs disappear, it's the jobs that remain are paying less and less and less. The ability to survive on a wage job. And I think what we've seen increasingly is that a lot of people in the tops of both parties don't frankly care whether jobs created in Southern Virginia or Southern India. Now we are all human beings of equal dignity, but every other country is playing for keeps except for ours. Just in the last month, China has become the greatest consumer of energy. They've committed to buying their energy production from only Chinese-made and manufactured sources. And they've gone after these concrete factories and other things to try to beat us to the efficiency game. I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, well, why don't we just let India or China figure out energy first, or figure out the next jobs thing first. Every day we wait, we continue to send American jobs overseas that could be the kind of things you could support a family with here. For a year and a half, I have been trying to build enough support, enough members, to try to push back on the Build It, Make It, Grow It in America agenda, and we finally broke it through. In the last 5 or 6 weeks, we've been able to hold the first series hearings on China's manipulation of its currency and dumping practices. We've launched a national manufacturing strategy, as well as the American Trade Deficit Reduction Act. I've been fighting for Homestar and Rural Star that helps us renovate existing building stock, particularly in rural communities, that puts American construction crews to work. It puts American manufacturing to work because you're looking at the insulation, the double pane glass, the window film, and it's reducing electric bills for Americans at a time where the economic pinch is serious. I think right now is not a time for us to pull back in our shells and wait for China or other countries to beat us to the next set of jobs. Nor do I think this is something where, again, for those who think if we just give enough breaks to the people at the top, it will all trickle down from there. We have to be in this together. And that's what I've seen. That's what I went up there to do, is to shake up that conventional wisdom. And I think we're finally starting to get there. But we have a long way to go. When I look at whether it's the Charlottesville area, which has obviously continued to be relatively steady through this economic situation, though we certainly have seen foreclosures and real estate impacts, and when I go south of the James and see the part of our state that used to be the economic driver, but now I've seen thousands of jobs go overseas under an idea that we'll send over our good-paying jobs, but we'll get cheap stuff in return, and somehow that will work out for us. I think right now, in this year, we need people not to hide behind their party labels or their sound bites, but to come out and say, what is your plan for rebuilding the economy? And I believe it has to involve manufacturing, ag, and forestry. These are not things of the past. For all of our high-tech, ag and forestry continues to be the biggest sector of the Virginia economy, with all the defense, with all the high-tech, all of which are important. But we have to remember that it's important to have jobs, that someone who works hard and plays by the rules, they're going to be able to support a family. The second side of that, for me, that's been a guiding principle for the last year and a half, is fairness, and particularly fairness for the middle class. We have a system that has been increasingly pinching out the middle class. There's a social safety net if you're among the most marginal. If you're at the top end, you're probably doing all right, took a dip last year, but are back for the most part. And everyone in the middle has been getting crushed. And there are two sides of that. One is the jobs, your revenue stream in the home, either not having it there or being paid less and less, and the other is the cost stream. And what are those costs? Healthcare costs, housing costs, transportation, electric costs, and the cost of sending your kids to college. So what have we tried to do? We've tried to go up and reduce costs for healthcare. We've tried to go out and make it easier to have a home that's efficient and reduces your electric bill and diversifies our energy sources so we're not as vulnerable to those price shocks we've seen. Tried to make college more affordable with the biggest overhaul of student loan reforms that we've seen in a generation. And tried to help people through these tough times with tax breaks for 98% of Virginia families. These things are not magic wands that fix every problem, but it was an understanding that people were on tough times in the last year and a half and deserved a little bit of relief. I believe that was the right thing to do. So as I continue to fight the fights that I see in front of us, I think this is a time where we have to be thinking bold, not weak. And let me end with one last example of that, and that's the deficit. You're going to hear a lot from both parties this year about how committed they are to deficit reduction. If there's one thing I've learned in my brief time in Washington, it's that the only thing that's going to get this done is the bipartisan budget commission. Both parties have talked a good game while running up deficits. I've been somewhat quoted and sent around a video saying, Congress will keep stealing from you unless you tie our hands. And people seem upset by that. I hate to tell you, it's the truth. Until we wake up and realize that both parties will continue to run up deficits unless we give them no other choice. That's the important truth we need to understand. Both will run those up unless we do pay-as-you-go legislation, so you can't do something unless you pay for it, and a bipartisan budget commission that demands an up or down vote in front of Congress. No amendments, nothing else. Anything else is going to go forward and make good sound bites and pointing fingers in each direction. This is based on the BRAC Commission, the Base Closing Commission, which was a very difficult thing after the Cold War. Everyone knew a lot of the bases need to be shut down and consolidated, but sure as heck no one wanted it to be the base in their district. Nor did they want it to be in the base next to their district. Nor did they even want it to be a base in their state. So if you put it through the normal process, everything gets killed in committee. Everything's got to be put on the table and looked at. That doesn't mean that I'll support anyone that comes up, but it sure as heck better have an up or down vote. So I hope this year, for all the rhetoric that gets pushed around, we understand that until we limit Washington's ability to run up those deficits, we will continue to see them. And probably the single most important way we can step in that direction is to demand that there's an up or down vote with nowhere to hide for the products of the Bipartisan Budget Commission. Those are the sorts of things I think we need to do. We need to, this group is called this is the Senior Center, and we're at the Senior Statesman of Virginia debate. Statesmen, that's what we need, and statesmen step up and make tough decisions. Very few problems can be solved without making tough decisions. I'm willing to make them because I think it's what makes our country stronger. I'm proud to have done so, and I look forward to continue to do so in the challenges ahead, including this idea of once again building, making, and growing things in America. Thank you very much.